Alright, so I've said this before, but in Canada specifically, I can't really say the same thing about the United States, but we do not have a system that is racist against natives. In fact, we are systemically pro-native. We're very pro-native, and we're not systemically racist against natives at all. In fact, they're part of our empire. They are not slaves, in the sense that even the white people are slaves to our empire. But they even have their own jurisdiction. Now, it can be complicated because we do have a social racism against natives for their attitudes and their behavior. But you can't aggressively come at the whites on account of that racism. You can only do it within the realms of being peaceful. You can discriminate against them, you can antagonize them peacefully, because we do have problems based on unjust judgment of the native people. Now, of course, like our parents, like I had said, our grandparents, our ancestors, they subsidized their wages by farming after work and growing their own food. There's a lot of slavers who slave whites to feed themselves. But the majority of us, we made a living by farming. And that's something the natives didn't do. And so what you have to realize is you have to cut down the forest to make way for sustainable food so that you have sustainable cows. And we hunt recreationally as if we're telling our children the way the natives live isn't disrespectful, it's not bad, it's just not sustainable. And so as a native, you have to understand, well, not as a native, but like, you have to understand that in order to learn how to treat wood, you have to cut down wood quite a bit before you learn how to treat wood. Because if, as a native, you build a house out of lumber, it rots really quick. And so if you build a bunch of houses out of lumber and they all rot, you start to wonder why you'd be doing that. But the reality is, it's not about cutting down the wood to build yourself a lodge. It's about cutting down the wood so that you can farm. And so you have room for your cattle. And when you do that, you get the fruits of technology. And as you have more wood, then you can burn things to forge steel and make tools, so it's easier, and it's really easy. And that's just something that the native communities sort of need to do for themselves. And so that really needs to be destigmatized and addressed appropriately, because once they demonstrate behaviorally and through their attitudes that the problem isn't the white people, then they would be able to voice themselves politically for a systemic change which is more respectful, which is something that we all need from ourselves. But it would be very appreciable to get that vote from them, because they have their own jurisdiction and they have a lot of political control in our country. Some things just need to be said, and sadly sometimes more than once. It takes time, but you know, like, it takes time just to clear a field. It takes time to make it fruitful. It takes time and expenses to get the cattle and to start making those changes, and those changes have to be made. And there is really no reason why our government couldn't aid in that agenda, and it should actively aid in that agenda. And so our social racism against them isn't systemic, but we prevent there from being a systemic benefit that benefits humanity and our country, and those people that have very little to reach out to and very little experience to draw on victimize themselves. And it creates crime and it creates stigma, and that's sad. Alright, peace.